We are live. Welcome to the My Veteran Experience podcast. My name is Joe Wallace, and I'm honored today to be speaking to Noel Currier of the Oscar Mike Company and Foundation. Great to great to be speaking with you today, Noah.
It's great to be speaking with you too. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. I'm wearing your T-shirt today, so just wanted to point that out, and going to support your endeavors, and hope everybody else does as well. So tell us your story. So, where you're from, you're in the Marine Corps, and kind of bring us to Oscar Mike briefly here.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in a little farm town called Poplar Grove. It's on the Illinois side of the Wisconsin border, so northwest of Chicago. Joined the Marine Corps. I signed up for the delayed entry program. Spent almost a year waiting to leave. Left when I was 18, and long story there about leaving early, getting in a little bit of trouble. Then I was in 1st Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion out of Camp Pendleton, California. I left for boot camp in 2000, and about a year later, September 11th happened. Went on my first deployment. Called it Operation Enduring Boredom because we never really got off a ship. And then I left on a second deployment shortly after that landed us in Kuwait, and March 19th, 2003, 1st Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion, ran point for the Iraq invasion. And when I got home from the invasion about 3 days later, a Marine fell asleep at the wheel driving the truck that I was in, and we rolled down a hill at the entrance of Camp Pendleton. I broke my neck in the accident, left me paralyzed. I went back home to my little town of Poplar Grove, Illinois, and started a business with my family. It was a live music venue, and a bunch of other crazy things happened along the way. I lost somebody very close to me. I don't know. It was a rough patch there for quite a while, and for about 6 years, I think I was pretty lost and just numbing everything that was keeping me down, I guess. And then eventually I got involved in adaptive sports. And that's really when things started turning around for me. And once I got physically active, and I met a bunch of other people who had been through something similar to me, and I felt like I needed to start an organization with all these guys that I was meeting that was really focused on adaptive sports, because it was the one thing that we all cited as the most impactful part of our recovery and our long-term, just new mission.
Great. Well, when you were in the Marine Corps and you came back from deployment, and I think it was very soon after that the accident occurred. So were you looking to stay in the Marine Corps? Or what were your thoughts when you first came back from deployment? Was your unit supposed to start cycling again for another one, or what were you thinking at that point?
We didn't really know at that point when the next deployment would be, because the last two were so close together, which wasn't common. The typical cycle, I think you got about 18 months between them. And these were pretty much back to back. And so we didn't really know when we'd be deploying again. I got hurt on that third night. So I spent the next 6 months in the hospital. But at some point while I was in the hospital, I know a few months into it, the guys from my unit came to tell me that they were leaving again. And they went over for OIF2 and Fallujah, and got into some more nasty fighting. But as far as would I have stayed in, I don't think so. Most of the guys that I went in with were all getting out. We kind of, we all put our fists in and made that pact together that we were all getting out together.
So why did the Marine Corps in the first place? Do you have a military background in the family at all, or?
Yeah, ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be a Marine. My dad was a Marine, and had some other Marines in the family, and it was just something that I always wanted to do. I mean, I remember, like even as a little kid in like art class painting the Eagle Globe and Anchor. It was like
Oh,
there really wasn't anything else that I wanted to do more than that.
that's awesome. Did your father serve just like a 4-year stint and got out, or was he?
I think he did 8 actually, and that was back in '72.
Okay. All right, cool. So, so did you go to the hospital initially from your accident? Were you in San Diego? Were you down at the hospital, the military hospital there for that 6 months, or?
Yeah, I was at the VA in La Jolla, which
Oh,
is
okay.
like maybe a half hour south of Camp Pendleton.
Okay, not the Balboa, the big
No.
Navy hospital there. Okay, because I visited there 2011 and met with the Marine Corps warrior group there, and met a number of the Marines who had come back from deployment and were getting treated there. First Sergeant, I tell this story because I thought it was just such a great story. There was a lot of positivity in that room, which it would be easy to not be positive among those Marines, and I was just amazed on kind of that environment and someone had told me that it was the first sergeant that really brought that positivity to those individuals. And so you recover from your accident, and then what happened at that point?
I flew back home to Poplar Grove, Illinois, and well, to an airport close by, and then drove home to Poplar Grove,
The
Illinois.
international airport of Poplar, Illinois.
Right. And shortly after I had gotten home, the girl that I had been with for 7.5 years called me up one night and told me she had to work late. And when I woke up in the morning, she wasn't there. And I woke up to the phone ringing. And when I answered it, there was a call to let us know that she had passed away in a car accident on her way home from work. She fell asleep at the wheel, and that's pretty much when my positivity ended. I was doing pretty well until that point.
Wow, and well, sorry to hear that. So what happened to you at that point, or how did it spiral down for you?
Well, I couldn't talk for a very long time, and when I say I couldn't talk, it was just like I couldn't get my vocal cords to work. I couldn't get a word out of my mouth. So people would try to start a conversation with me, and I just couldn't. I mean, I didn't even want to be engaging in conversation, because if I did, it was I was basically mute, and then I would end up crying. So it was very hard for me to have fun or enjoy anything after I lost her, and it took me an extremely long time to get over that. And I don't know if you ever get over it, but I think time can heal a lot.
So what sort of support did you have at that point, going through those feelings and not engaging, and so who was there for you?
Well, my family was, and then when I finally got to the point where I could talk with people, we did have this live music venue that my family had, and I would go watch music there and hang out, and eventually, I think with enough booze inside me, I started talking again. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it definitely led me down a bad path eventually, because I drank every day.
Now, was this a business that your family had over a long period of time, and you started supporting the business?
Actually, it was something that when I was in the hospital, I had made a bunch of like chicken scratch notes about starting a venue like this while I was in Iraq. And when I was in the hospital, my dad asked me what my plans were, what I'd like to do, if I could do something. And I told him about this, and he, him and my mom both loved live music, and my little brother and I were musicians, and everybody in the family wanted to do it. So we opened up a venue only like 2 miles down the road from our house, out in the middle of nowhere. It was pretty cool. People would drive pretty far out in the middle of nowhere to watch some bands at this venue in a cornfield.
Awesome. What is it? Particular type of music or?
No, it was everything. We were pretty wide open.
And then acts would come through, or you'd book acts, and you would do some recorded music as well, or?
A lot of times it was bands that were touring between, like Milwaukee and Chicago. They'd usually take a night, a detour to we were close enough to Rockford, Illinois, which is
Rockford, yeah,
somewhat of a big town, and that was their new tour stop.
Awesome, cool. So then what led to Oscar Mike? Or well, let's stay there for a second. So you just said you kind of spiraled to drinking, and what did that lead to?
Well, when I got out of the hospital, I was on, I want to say it was like 13 or 14 different medications. I couldn't even tell you what they all were at the time, nor did I care. I just, took what they gave me. And I was on that stuff in the beginning, and even when I started drinking, which I think, intensified things, and eventually got it down to where I was only on 2 different meds, really just for I get a really strong spasticity in my legs, and so I still take something for that. But other than that, I was off of everything else. And I think, if I'm not taking medication and I'm not drinking, I'm much more clear-headed than if I am. Pretty obvious. I think in those early years, though, especially after losing Maureen, I didn't think about any of that, nor did I care about any of it. It was just kind of full throttle with whatever I could get my hands on, which turned to other drugs, and then hanging out with a lot of rock stars made that
Not
easy.
the environment for getting clean quickly, right?
No, it was not. And it became almost an every night thing. I mean, it was like, I was just thankful that we were closed on Mondays, because that was a day off.
It was a day to dry up a little bit before the next day.
Yeah.
Well, so what brought you? I mean, then what brought you out of that, or what brought you to kind of what you ended up doing, or getting to adaptive sports, or et cetera, or what brought you out of that day-to-day drinking and where you weren't clear-headed and where you wanted to be anyway?
There were a couple of things that happened at the same time. One, a friend of mine had come into my room, kind of caught me off guard. I caught him off guard. I was holding a rifle, and I was leaning over it. And the second he came in the room, and I did this often, it wasn't like this was a one-time occurrence. It's just I never had anybody walk in while I was in the middle of it, or trying to talk myself into pulling the trigger. And he walked in, and I threw it on my bed very awkwardly, and then threw a pillow over it, and just kind of pretended like nothing happened. He pretended, like nothing happened, and we just started talking, and just about normal stuff. He was a pretty funny guy, and so he got me laughing and saying some things real quick, and then he started telling me about, or we started talking about this event that he had mentioned several times before, where they take people in wheelchairs skiing. And I was like, dude, I'm a quadriplegic. I'm not going skiing. It doesn't even make sense. And he kept trying to convince me that I would make it through it. And so I did. I signed up for this event, which, if you think about it, if you sign up for something and you have something coming up soon, you have something to look forward to. Where I think, like that was probably the first time where I had something in the future to look forward to that was coming up, that I was kind of nervous about, but also excited. I mean, I would, you know, fear and adrenaline and things like that are, in my opinion, like a necessity. And I definitely was an adrenaline junkie before that, growing up, and then in the Marine Corps. And so I'd been missing that. And when I went to this event, I got all of that. I was so scared going up that mountain, thinking like, I'm going to break everything I have left, which is just like, I could feel, which was just my arms and my neck and head and shoulders. But I was thinking, this isn't going to end well. And, I went all the way to the top of the mountain with these two instructors, and sat up there at the top looking over, like planet Earth. You feel like you could see the entire planet from that vantage point. And I felt alive right there. I felt, it felt amazing. And, that moment was extremely impactful. When I got down to the bottom, after going up several times, I started meeting other guys who, had really horrible stories too about the things that they had gone through and the people that they had lost in their lives. And, I wasn't alone anymore in that sense. And then, I found out about all these other adaptive sporting events that exist out there, and like the National Veteran Wheelchair Games. And I signed up for that one when I got home. I signed up for college. I went skydiving. I started doing things that were outside of my comfort zone, but would become kind of the new normal for me. And between school and, for the live music venue, I was doing the marketing. So going to school and learning marketing and doing all that. And also met a new girl right around then. And this girl, now I had, years in between losing Maureen and meeting her. It was like I had a new lease on life. It was that everything was possible again. And for so long it seemed like none of it was possible.
Let me ask you about your friend who came in on you, and you both kind of surprised each other. Is this a longtime childhood friend, someone you served with in the Marine Corps?
It was a longtime childhood friend who actually just recently just passed away unexpectedly.
Oh, sorry about that.
I mean, it was one of those things I couldn't believe that it happened, and yeah, it's pretty recent, so it's unfortunate, but knew him for a very long time.
Huh? Could someone else have done the same thing that day, or was he special?
I think his character and who he is to me. I mean, when I was home for those years after the hospital, he helped me out with a lot of things. He was always helping me around the house, and he was always there. He would show up damn near every day, and he was a big part of my life. So I don't know if anybody else could have told me to. Plus, he was the one that was going to physically go with me, which right. So that made a big difference too.
Yeah, because somebody who may not have been the same, or you may not have had the same relationship with, you might have just thought, well, fuck you, and I'm right. Fine, and leave me alone, right?
Right. Yeah. I very well could have blown anybody else off, probably.
Wow. Okay. So you discovered adaptive sports. You brought some positivity into your life. You've connected with other people who shared, similar backgrounds and tragedies and things like that. And so as you started meeting these folks, I've been a part of Wounded Warrior Games. I attended the ones in Quantico. God, I think it's about 5 years ago now. We were there and sponsoring, and my boss is a retired Marine Corps general. He's been at the games down at Camp Pendleton, where the Marines are competing to go to the other inter-service games, and have been involved with that. So are you sort of in that network of veterans that are doing adaptive games and finding opportunities to compete and those sorts of things, or?
Yeah, and the longer time goes on, the more events like that exist. You know, it's really cool to see that adaptive sports have become a focus. And the one, you know, like the mission behind the Oscar Mike Foundation was basically to, as more adaptive sports exist, and they're figuring out how to modify and adapt all of these sports. There's these little organizations all over that are focusing on, like, you know, we might be a sled hockey organization or an archery organization or a skydiving organization, and they really, you know, they perfected some of the things that they're doing, and the ways that they're helping veterans. They just need to get veterans there, and veterans usually can't afford to get there themselves, or to try out all these new things, or to go to all these competitions. So we're just trying to remove that barrier of entry.
So, so how did you come up with the idea for Oscar Mike? And having been involved in a small business already, might have led you to that, but maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, I really didn't have a clue what I was doing, but you know, I was sitting in a hotel lobby with a bunch of other guys, amputees and guys in wheelchairs, and as we're all talking about, you know, this moment when our life changed, it was, you know, every single time it was adaptive sports and being around another group of people. And then when I would say something like, "Well, are you going to the National Veteran Wheelchair Games, or are you doing this, or are you doing that?" It's like, well, yeah, I would love to, but I can't afford to do all that. And you know, you start to realize, well, very quickly, we all realize money is the barrier of entry, and you know, like having, you want that unit of guys that you're comfortable with, to go to the next thing and challenge each other, and you know, like keep raising the bar for each other. So you don't want somebody to not be able to participate in a life-changing event because they can't afford it.
So how are most people funded to attend these events?
A lot of times, it depends. I mean, well, Oscar Mike, or a lot of these events might fund your first time, but not the times afterwards. You know, which, you know, is understandable. It's extremely expensive to send a lot of people to an event. So typically people will look for funding elsewhere, or grants, or, you know, wherever they can, or just save up all year to try to get to one event. You know, it depends on the person and what they know is available, what they can afford, you know.
So yeah, so you know an individual that I know quite well, Tim Bomke, and he started into adaptive sports, I think about a couple years ago, and
Yeah.
he ended up attending an event. I think I'm trying to remember where it was, but so talk a little bit more just about adaptive sports and what takes place across all these different competitions. Are there leagues? Do teams look for those that are really good in a particular sport and go, hey, let's compete, and we can get, maybe there's funding by the league or a sponsor, or kind of give us the whole background on adaptive sports and what's going on in it today.
Well, the cool thing about adaptive sports is they're figuring out how to adapt damn near everything. You know, like there's a way for, especially for a lot of the amputees or paraplegics. You know, there's probably fewer sports for quadriplegics like me, guys who are impaired in all four limbs. You know, kind of obviously, it's a little harder to adapt equipment and stuff, but yeah, I mean, you name a sport and it's being played by somebody with a disability, and it's really just about modifying the either the rules of the game or the equipment that is used to play the game.
So which sports have you participated in?
Well, the greatest wheelchair sport in existence is quad rugby, and wheelchair rugby. They also, you know, it has the nickname Murder Ball, and it's the only real full contact sport of its kind, especially for people in wheelchairs. and you play it indoors, usually like on a basketball court. And yeah, it's awesome and full
Describe it.
contact.
Describe it. I'm trying to figure out how it takes place.
So it's 4-on-4. You have, right now the rules to play, you have to be impaired in at least 3 limbs, and the original or the name for the sport is quad rugby, meaning 4, either 4 players or all 4 limbs, and your 4-man squad that you have out on a court at any time, there's a range of different disability levels, and every player is given a point value that's given to you by a panel of physical therapists. So for instance, like if the season is starting, I might be a 1.5, and so I'm going to be a defensive player. And the guy who has more function than me, who's got some hand function and can throw the ball really well, might be a 3, for instance, or even a 2.5 or a 3.5. 3.5 is the highest point that you can be. But out on the court, your team can only have 8 points. So you could have 4 2s out there, or you could have like a 2 1.5s and a couple 3s 0, or a 3 and a 0. Sure. My math is all jacked up.
It's there, okay. But, no, so are you looking to take out those 3.5s when you're out there in the court?
They are much faster than the 1.5s typically, so we are trying to anticipate what they were going to be doing next. And and put ourselves in the right position to stop them or slow them down.
So are you just putting your chair in front of theirs? Is that kind of the defensive strategy there?
Yeah, and if if you're reading everything right and the way a play develops or unfolds, you can anticipate these things, and if you're smart, you can get in the right position and smash them before they get in the goal, or stop them from moving down court.
Awesome. Well, you laid down the gauntlet as it being the greatest adaptive sport out there. So do you have some buddies that will disagree with you?
No, I don't think so.
Not to your face anyway.
No, I think they all know. I mean, it's one of the coolest sports. I think paraplegics and amputees wish that they could play. Because it's that cool. I should probably, now that the sun is going down, I should probably turn my lights on real quick. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah. Yeah, you're out there in Central Time. I'm here on the West Coast, but I'm completely I can't see outside right now at this point. But, well, when you first got into adaptive sports, was there one that you enjoyed watching more than other ones, or was it just maybe because you knew somebody who played that particular sport? Or
well, I always thought it was really cool to watch how people were skiing and snowboarding, and depending on their disability levels, what kind of adaptive equipment that they'd be using. And a mountain, you can go easy or you can go hard, and some people are 100 miles an hour, some are more technical, some like doing little tricks and stuff, and then there's the quadriplegics like me that just want to survive getting down the mountain and make some big turns. I think that's a really cool sport. I mean, there's a ton. Watching.
So is it just a balance? So with the skiing, is it just a kind of a balance thing and leaning on the skis itself as you're going down, and then you have to kind of learn how to shift your weight and those sorts of things? Is that how you do it skiing?
Yeah, for a quadriplegic like me, I'm sitting in a bucket seat, they call it, and the ski is called a bi-ski. So there's like 2 skis right next to each other underneath your butt, and when you lean, for instance, if you lean your left arm forward, you're holding onto these little outriggers that are just little like handheld skis, and real short ones. And for somebody like me, we either Velcro it all up to my hand, or we'll even use a bunch of tape and tape it to my hand. And then when you lean forward and put it in the snow, you go that direction. And then you got the paraplegics and the different levels of amputees, single, double, triple, quadruple amputees that might use what's called a mono ski, where instead of having the two skis underneath you that give you a little bit more balance, but they're harder to turn, they're going to have this one ski because they can use their torsos to turn. And I mean, they rip down the mountain in those things. And then you got some of the single, double, triple triple amputees that are snowboarding or standing and skiing, and that's always super cool to see.
Oh.
And it's almost like every day you can set a new personal record when you're in a sport like that. You can take on a harder part of the mountain, or you can try something new. I mean, I remember the first time that I asked my instructors to tape those outriggers to my hand because I didn't want them holding onto the back of the chair, and they loved it. Like you get to watch somebody take something to a new level all the time. So there's sports like that, and scuba diving, seeing people get comfortable under the water, feel that weightlessness, travel all over the world, and really just feel alive again in different ways. I mean, there's a ton of really cool ones out there. Wheelchair basketball is amazing to watch.
Yeah, that's the one I've seen, and I'm amazed at kind of how quickly people are moving, and then they're nailing the shots at the same time. So,
Yeah.
well, so let's get to Oscar Mike. So, what was the idea? How did it come to you? And then what have you done with it so far? And then we can talk about where you're going with it.
Well, you got all these guys brainstorming the idea for a nonprofit in a hotel lobby, having a couple drinks, and everybody's got these great ideas that they're throwing out there. And I was like, well, who's going to do it? And I just basically said, I'd love to do it. And, I got a 2-car garage. If anybody wants to come set up some desks with me and turn that place into like our little office and warehouse, and 3 other guys in chairs all raised their hands, and they were either from northern Wisconsin, 2 of them, and then another one in Minnesota that ended up coming down and helped me out for about 6 months, get it all started in my parents' 2-car garage at the time.
Now, did you know them before, or you just met them through sports?
No, I met them at a sporting event.
Oh, okay, awesome. So you're in the garage. What were you doing? How did you grow it?
Well, we applied for a 501c3 and for a nonprofit, and they let us know that it could take, at that time that we applied, there was a huge backlog. And they said that it could take up to 2 years or 24 months before we get the approval. So we filed for it, and we also applied to start an LLC on the same day. And we just did that, I think, on LegalZoom or something, and we got it started that day. And we started like putting together designs and shirts to sell T-shirts. We're like, in the meantime, while we're waiting for the 501c3, we might be able to raise some money by selling shirts and raise some awareness for it. And I think we all thought if we were doing something so cool and to help disabled veterans and it was patriotic and all this, that people would just come to us. We didn't know how we were going to get other people to like what we were doing. And, after each of our moms bought one of our shirts, now the real work started.
You had your first sale, your first couple of sales through the family.
Yeah. And we launched it in we had the website. It was pretty ghetto at the time, but we launched it all on 11/11/11, which was Veterans Day that year.
Awesome. Yeah. So how are things going with Oscar Mike? I mean, your website doesn't look ghetto any longer.
No, we have a much nicer website than we had in those days, and it's doing well. I mean, unfortunately, right now, we had to cancel over 100 events. Either our own events or other people's events that we would send people to have all been canceled. And we're just crossing our fingers that 2021 is back on track. But right now we're just in a holding pattern, which has been, it's hard for a lot of reasons. I mean, it's hard because people and companies aren't donating the same. Everything and everybody is, really on hold and questioning what the future looks like all over the place, which you can't blame anybody. I mean, I do the same thing. I used to donate to a lot of different organizations every year. And this year, I'm probably holding on a little tighter because I just don't know what the future holds. And, I think, so right now, it's kind of just like, do I know what the next 6 months look like? Not really, but we're crossing our fingers that springtime, all of our events fire back up and we're able to do the things that we love. And, it's a bummer to talk to people who are struggling so much mentally right now. I think that that's the other effect. Not only do they not have these physical outlets, but they also don't have, a lot of times if you're in a wheelchair, for instance, you're just a little more isolated in general. Yeah, you might still get out all the time and do things, but you are a little bit more isolated. I feel like just because of your situation. Doesn't matter how outgoing or how many things you go out and do. I do feel like for the most part, people are just a tad bit more isolated, or in some cases, a lot more. And so if they don't have these events and things to look forward to, you can hear it in their voices, and you can see it in their faces that this is affecting them. And I think that it's another reason, I'm just really hoping that things go back to normal soon.
Yeah, aren't we all? So yeah, and I'm sure you're connecting with your network and your buddies out there to make sure everybody's staying positive, and we're all going to get through this hopefully at some point. The uncertainty is something that bothers. I've got everything going for me, and it bugs the hell out of me. So no, but talk a little bit about what you built and what sort of relationships that Oscar Mike put together to have you said you had your own events, and then you sent people to other events. So kind of just share that, what you built in Oscar Mike to do all the things that you were doing prior to COVID.
Well, a lot of really cool serendipitous things have happened. I mean, the stars have kind of been in alignment. Everything started real small, and I could argue in my mind things are still small. Some people would tell me I'm crazy, and that there's so much going on. But I definitely think in the future we just need to be helping as many people as humanly possible. So I think that there's still a ton of room to grow and help people. But prior to COVID, these last few years have been really cool to watch unfold. Things that I never saw coming up. There was a house for sale in the area that we started Oscar Mike in. It was like halfway wheelchair accessible. There were two elderly people in wheelchairs that lived there. So it's a 9,000 square foot house, and they had a lift in there already between the two floors. It had 7 huge bedrooms in it and 5.5 bathrooms, and the bathrooms were really big. So, you knew touring the place that it could be made very handicap accessible if you put the work into it. So there's kind of a long, funny story behind it, but I would offer less than half of what the asking price was every, I don't know, month or two. And the guy would pretty much just tell me to F off on the phone and hang up. And after, I think, 2.5 years of doing that, and the house still being for sale, he he had done the same thing. He basically told me to F off, and he hung up. And then about a day or two later, my phone rang, and it was him, and he had gotten my phone number from somebody, and he said, "Fine, I'll take it." And at the time I was so excited, but I still couldn't afford that. And it was just like, oh no, this is awesome. It's an awesome problem to have, but now I got to figure out how to actually make it happen. I never really thought he would say yes. And, but the dream was there, like all the things that we could do, because I had been living in this small little town is pretty unique. There's a small little airport for like sport planes down the road. And I grew up with the kid whose family owns it. And I was very close with them. So there's a lot of land there. We could do flight lessons. We could go off-roading. There's a shooting range right over there. It's right down the road from one of the coolest and I think biggest equestrian therapy places in the country. And then we live the house is on a lake where it's like a 5-mile track around it. So you could do water sports, you could do, kayaking and swimming and, and all sorts of things out there and fishing. And then you also had this 5-mile loop around it to do, pushes in a rugby chair, hand cycling laps, or, you name it. So as we started ideating about everything that would be possible, it was like, man, if we got that house, we could start our own programs. We don't have to just send people to other people's programs. And I was friends with this rec therapist who just, loved the idea of it. And her and I would talk and get all fired up about everything that would be possible if we had this place. So a couple people ended up helping me out and with putting a down payment on it. And well, the funny part of the story is that I had to call the guy back because after a few weeks of trying to get what I needed, there was no way I was going to be able to pull it off. And there's something about loans changing at $450,000. Now all of a sudden you need a lot more down and different type of credit and all that. So I told the guy, I was like, all right, we cannot do 600, but we can do 450. If you could use the other 150 as a donation, we can make this thing happen. And he did the same old thing and said F off and hung up the phone. And you could tell, but this time he was really mad. It wasn't
He was really mad.
He was really mad that I couldn't even pull that off. And after offering it for so long, but I really just was having fun doing it. I didn't think he would actually ever take it. And so he called me back about 2 weeks later, and I thought I would never hear from him again. And he said, fine, I'll do it. And so I think, when it was all said and done, we got it for about 30% of what it was worth. And we started the Oscar Mike compound. But, that led to a bunch of other things that made it tough. We had this big empty house that needed a ton of renovating done to it to make it wheelchair accessible. And
But you didn't ask him to do that before he sold it to you?
No.
You didn't want another FU from him?
I wanted to be able to show people that we had it and, be able to paint the vision for all of them. And, we found a supporter that saw the vision with us and helped us bring it all to life and helped us with a lot of the remodeling. And, that was a huge blessing at that point, because I don't know how we would have done it without these people. And then after we started the project, a TV show had called asking us to sponsor something. And I said, no, we don't sponsor. We don't pay for sponsorships, but we accept sponsorships. And next thing you know, we're talking to this TV show that remodels homes, and they helped us out with the project, and they actually did a few different episodes over the next 12 months. And by the time it was all done, we have this beautiful home that's all handicap accessible, and You know, it's really cool. And we do all these different adaptive sports. So we fly groups in on a Monday, and Monday night they get settled in. And Tuesday we hit the ground running. I mean, we put them through a gauntlet of different adaptive sports on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And by the time they leave Friday morning, they're exhausted. They've done a ton of really cool stuff. Their days were packed, and you know, every night they sit around this gigantic dining room table and they share their experiences of the day, and they talk about their military years, and you know, like all sorts of things. They share their like, little tips and tricks for independence, and you know, a lot of magic happens around that dining room table at night. And you know, and then they go home on Friday, and we start prepping the place again for the next group to come in. A bunch of volunteers come in, and we change all the bedding, we clean the whole house, we modify some equipment for the groups that are coming in, and you know, we do it all over again.
That's awesome.
So
have all of those individuals done adaptive sports previously, or are they new to it?
Some have, and some haven't. You know, some
Okay.
are brand new injuries. Some have been injured for a while and just haven't had the opportunity yet. Some have been through a couple different adaptive sports or tried a couple. But you know, one of the things that we do, I think that's somewhat unique, is sports that aren't typically like your Paralympic type sports. You know, when you get in, the very first thing we do is we teach you how to fly an airplane. That's your first morning.
Wow.
And you know, I think people that are struggling with figuring out their own independence, you know, like if the hardest thing you do in a day is, you know, figuring out how to get your own pants on, which is very hard in the early stages, and then you go flying, all of a sudden, you know, like you just flew an airplane by yourself, and now those little things for your daily independence don't seem so daunting, you know. And then we'll teach you how to drive an off-road vehicle right after that, and you go ripping around in Polaris Razors, and then you shoot some guns and are target shooting. You know, that first day, I think just that first day alone, you know, before we tell you that the next day we're throwing you out of an airplane, and you're going to go riding a horse and kayaking and stuff, you know, it's magical to watch what happens. But there are some like out of the box type things that aren't normal, and aren't always the safest either.
Yeah, well, you said in the beginning, you know, you had something to look forward to, and when you signed up to go skiing, even though you were nervous, it kind of had it gave you some peace of mind that, hey, I've got something to look forward to. I'm going to go do this, and then you met others, and then kind of you continue to stay positive and keep on this path. So, and I imagine that's a day-to-day struggle. It's not something that just cures itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's I am amazed when I meet other people. I'm still learning. You know what I mean? I'm a long time into my injury, and I'm still learning from all these guys, and it's awesome. I don't, you know, that'll probably never end. But I love seeing, you know, like some of these younger guys that were just injured that we get to help immediately. You know what I mean? Maybe from the hospital bed straight to a rugby chair or something, you know, like those are the kind of moments where it's like, man, if we all had that and we didn't go through those, sometimes, you know, decade long, even, spells where we didn't get any of that done, or we didn't learn any of it or see any of it. I don't know. It's been pretty awesome.
That is awesome. So how do people support Oscar Mike, and where can they find them online? And so let's give the shameless plugs and how people can support you.
Yeah, I mean, you can donate on the website. People do fundraisers. Companies help out. You know, pretty much any typical fundraising avenues. We do them all, and we need the support. We love it, and there's no way we're even going to be able to start a 2021 season without people's support. So yeah, it's if you could go to oscarmike.org or find us on social media. There's all sorts of ways to look us up there. We're on all the platforms, you know, and yeah, any support would be great.
Is the compound shut down now because of COVID? So
Yeah.
you're waiting to open back up once the restrictions are lifted and people can start moving, traveling again?
Yeah, and it's been tough because we fly people in from all over that have different restrictions everywhere, you know, depending from. And right now, our area just went back again. You know, it's been real tough here.
Is it all U.S. based, or do you have folks coming internationally?
It's all U.S. based.
Okay. And are you connected into the veteran networks primarily?
Yeah, and the VA hospitals.
Okay. Well, let's talk about you. And so where are you today? And you told me in a conversation we had that you were kind of looking at a bucket list, national parks sort of exploration, or so what are some of the things that are keeping you looking forward to something, and what do you have on your bucket list?
I'm still recovering from this trip that it was pretty amazing. I went out. My cousin is a tour guide in Rocky Mountain National Park, so he's been bugging me to come out there forever and do one of his tours with them, and then, you know, just have a trip with them. So I finally did it. I would say that this was like the first vacation that I've planned and gone on in a decade. I did a couple little ones that were not my choice or not my planning with my parents, but this was the first one that you know, like, I put together and chose, and if I could do the things that I wanted, this is what I would do. And I went to Rocky Mountain National Park, spent a couple days there, and then we went a little bit, and we went whitewater rafting down the Colorado River, and we camped out there. And I was talking with one of my buddies right before that. I stopped in Denver and met up with some friends before we went to the park. And he's an old Marine buddy of mine that was in my unit and hadn't seen him in a very long time. And he asked me, he said, so when's the last time you went camping like this? And I was just thinking, I haven't. And he said, so wait, the last time you went camping was with me? He was referring to Iraq.
Iraq, yeah.
And I was like, yeah, the last time I was sleeping outside, you and I were digging holes together to sleep in. And then you know, so yeah, I camped out. It was awesome. I went over to Moab after that, and we had brought with one of our Polaris Razors, and we got to go off-roading all around Moab. And Utah was beautiful. Moab was beautiful.
Moab's awesome, isn't it? That area
It
is
really
incredible.
It was incredible. And when I was camping out there, I didn't even, no tents, no campers or anything. I just a pad on the ground and a blanket, not even a sleeping bag. And it was incredible. You know, I feel like everybody needs to experience that in Moab.
The stars and the clear skies.
It was unbelievable. I mean, I would imagine that it's probably even better, which is hard to picture if there weren't so many wildfires to the west happening. You know, I think that creates a.
It was hazy there at the time.
Yeah, it was a little hazy, but I mean, you could still see an incredible amount of stars. I mean, more than anywhere I'd ever seen, I think.
Wow. Well, it looks like it was a great trip. A lot of smiling going on there, Noah.
Yeah, it was a blast.
Well, great. Well, hey, it's been a pleasure talking to you. It's been my honor, and you're doing some, you know, God's work, bringing people together and what you're building. And I hope that people will reach out and support you, you know, when they're viewing this. So Semper Fi, brother. It's
Well,
been
thank
yeah,
you
it's been
very
great.
much.
Yeah, so you want to kind of parting words or?
Well, I mean, for one, thanks for having me on. This was a fun conversation to have with you. Two, I love that Marine Corps flag in the back. I think that's why I've been smiling this whole time. And yeah, I mean, if anybody does choose to support us because they heard this, thank you very much in advance. And you know, I hope that you know, you and I get to stay in contact, and I'll you know, keep you abreast of how things are going from here. I mean, hopefully everything opens back up and we get to keep chasing that dream and that mission of helping more people.
That sounds awesome. Thanks again, and we will keep in touch.
All right, Semper Fi, brother.
Semper Fi, everybody.